in addition to my previous statement, join this Antichrist, join us witches. To that I will add, join this New World Order. Because that's what they'll call me. When the Christians are saying, oh, this is the Antichrist and the New World, the one world religion and the one world government foretold by the Bible. And the truthers are saying, this is the Illuminati elite executing their one world government plan via Project Bluebeam, which just received a major advertising campaign. Now all of your normie friends and family have all heard of Project Bluebeam. And Bluebeam is said to cover two things: a fake alien invasion and or the fake return of Christ. And Jesus was not of this world. I used to see that bumper sticker, NOTW, with the Christian cross on it, and I asked my girlfriend, what does that mean? She said, oh, it's referencing Jesus. He's not of this world. I said, oh, okay. They, the newcomers who are here already, have far greater power than the current institutions of authority and the power brokers of this world. The one thing those power brokers of this world have, their one power that they have, is the power over our hearts and minds. And that's why this is a delicate extraction process, to try to help the most people possible make it through this transition. So, when they seize power in order to try to free the slaves, and many of the slaves will be able to be freed at that point when their current slave master is suppressed, like an abusive spouse, an abusive codependency. This is something that I speak of in a video titled Some Things to Consider Before the Witch Hunt. Links will be in the description. It's a 2-part video. But I speak a bit about the... Anyway, I'll just keep talking about what I'm talking about now. So, currently the people are in an abusive relationship, and they are forced to compartmentalize, like split personality, schizophrenia, or dissociative identity disorder. They are forced to disassociate with anything that is traumatic and causes them pain and discomfort, the mental and emotional pain and discomfort and anxiety of accommodating to a new self-image and worldview. So anything that runs against the grain of their preconceived ideas that they know Master would not approve of, they cannot afford, because Master is their primary caregiver. They cannot afford to think about that. So they compartmentalize it. You know, like the process that's been happening the last couple of years. People compartmentalize that. They can't afford to think, what did they just try to do to us? And what did so many of us take? And why are so many of us dropping suddenly? Because that's their primary caregiver, with whom they are in an abusive, codependent relationship. But when those power institutions are neutralized and suppressed, the hostages that they hold, which is us, will have an opportunity to accept and acknowledge that we are slaves. And when this new world order comes, the people who will have the hardest time letting go of the old world order are the ones that experience the most comfort and conveniences of material wealth. Those that are toward the top of the food pyramid. Advanced industrialized Western nations with people who live comfortable lifestyles are going to fight tooth and nail to hold on to the current power structure, the current cosmology, the current paradigm. People in third world countries will have a lot easier time accepting that there's a new sheriff in town and that there is a new power broker. But authority is consent of the governed. And the reason this is such a delicate extraction process, because they have far more power than the current institutions. But power does not equal authority. They could overpower instantly the power structure of our current institutions, church, government, countries, even international organizations, because they wield far more power. But what they want is the consent of the governed, which is authority. And the people in general are going to have a tough time accepting them as the new authority, even though it will be very clear they are holding all the power. So, if this crazy notion that I am positing right now happened, and I said, oh, I'm with them, people would be very distrustful of me and call me the enemy during this witch hunt. They are the enemy, and anyone who communicates with or cooperates with them is also the enemy. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. And this new witch hunt will be racism multiplied by religion, multiplied by the war on terror. And you're either with us or you're with them. And in order to prove you're with us, you got to take up arms against them. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're with them and you're the enemy. So while the Christians are saying, this is the Antichrist, this is the false God, like BP Earthwatch said in plain English in his second video about the book of Revelation. First he did chapters 1 through 3, and then he did chapters 4 through 7. And in chapters 4 through 7, he says you gotta wait for the second gods. The first one that arrives, that's the false god, that's the evil one. You're supposed to wait for the next one. Those are the same institutions that are keeping you in the dark about plasma fire, that have conditioned you with these ideas about the Antichrist and the one world government and the New World Order. Has just been another long-term psychological operation of conditioning you to fight against the New World Order. The same institutions that are currently in control have conditioned you to fight against this New World Order, because they are not the ones who are going to be in control of it when it occurs. That is direct logic and reasoning. When you recognize that we didn't come up with Project Bluebeam, we didn't sniff out some secret document, they injected that into our minds. And we didn't come up with this idea of the New World Order. Every president has spoken of it, and they have conditioned us to fight against it and resist and die. Give me liberty or give me death. The object here is to get people to recognize they don't have liberty, they are slaves, and instead of defending their current slave master and the institutions and the current power structure that exists, be able to free themselves from this slave plantation when they are given the opportunity to. I've been working on a jailbreak. Can you picture what will be? So limitless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land. And that's where I come in. I have laid the bridge to cross the uncanny valley, but you have to take the steps to cross it, because it is voluntarily of your free will. That is what authority is, the consent of the governed. So there is a reason that we have all been programmed to fight against the New World Order in the truther circles of alternative media. When you recognize that instinct, that notion to resist and rebel and fight against the New World Order has been given to you by the current power structures that exist. That means those current power structures that exist want you to fight against that New World Order. So when people think, oh no, it's the globalist elite of the current power structure, that's counterintuitive when you recognize they have programmed us to resist this New World Order, and that they're going to be the ones running it, because they are not going to be the ones running it. The religious will be saying this is the Antichrist and the one world government and the one world currency and the one world religion prophesied by the Bible. Resist it with your life. Die before joining. the truthers will be saying, no, this is the Illuminati cabal, the globalists, and their New World Order. And they're faking the invasion with their Project Bluebeam. And at such a time, when this is going down, they will call me the Antichrist because I joined them in this witch hunt. They will persecute anyone who has any compassion, like the song Schism by Tool. That is showing a reunification of us with our space brothers. And the lyrics say, cold silence has a tendency to atrophy any sense of compassion, and that was by design. And the cold silence we've had between us and no one else who exists out there, because it's just us alone on a spinning ball in the middle of nowhere, that silence has atrophied our sense of compassion. And anyone who shows compassion or cooperates or communicates with the enemy is also going to be deemed the enemy. Hopefully, when this happens, people will then be able to recognize those same institutions that they're fighting to defend and want to keep in place, just tried to cull them worldwide. But right now they can't afford to accept and acknowledge that for what it was and what it is, because they are still under the dictates of that slave master. But when that slave master gets dislodged from his position of power and authority, just like an abusive spouse, once her abusive husband gets locked up, she can think for herself again, because he's no longer right there ready to penalize her for doing so. So, this whole concept to resist the New World Order has been given to us, just like Bluebeam was given to us. The idea to resist the New World Order, you were programmed with that notion by the very institutions that you're currently under the idea are who is going to be forming this New World Order. They are not going to be in power and in authority. That is why they have conditioned us to fight against this New World Order, both through religion and through alternative media concepts, truther circles. It does not make sense. It is illogical when you recognize that that is propaganda that was given to us. We were programmed to fight against the New World Order by the very institutions who are currently in power and would still be in power during this New World Order. It only makes sense once you recognize those institutions are not going to be the ones running this New World Order. Very few people will be able to accept this and cross that bridge. People at the top of the pyramid, like United States and other industrialized Western countries, who enjoy the comforts and conveniences of material wealth, will find it the most difficult to accept there is a new sheriff in town, and the old powers that be are no longer in a position of power and authority, and that we are going to be better off for it. People who are at the top of the food chain will fight tooth and nail to keep the current structure and the current paradigm in place because they benefit from it, even if they themselves are just working paycheck to paycheck. Like Joni Mitchell sings in the song Don't Interrupt the Sorrow. Don't interrupt the sorrow, you darn right. In flames are prophet witches, be polite. Truth goes up in vapors, steeples lean, winds of change, patriarchs, snug in your Bible Belt dreams. God goes up the chimney like childhood Santa Claus. The good slaves love the good book. A rebel loves a cause. And that cause that I've been fighting for is your actual freedom. And in order to allow you actual freedom, I've shown you how enslaved you are. There are none more so enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. Plasma fire alone completely discredits those institutions that are keeping you in the dark about it. And at this time, when this transition happens, I will suddenly be distrusted because I'm with them. And at that time, all of my previous videos will speak far louder than anything I could possibly say in the moment, because they show that I was with you. I was one of you. In that transition, they will just say, well, you sold out. You're just telling us that these are the good guys here to free and liberate us because you're benefiting from it. You're just shilling for the devil. Those who have seen my work and recognize the qualities of character that I've demonstrated and the attributes that I've explained are the dividing line on this consciousness form where we are being separated, can see that this is going to be a better world filled with people who are worth living with, and thus be a world worth living in, because of the ideals and principles that this filtration is based upon. And the few people who I've gotten through to would proportionally equate to the narrow path and the gate to salvation. So at that time, my previous words will speak far louder than anything I could possibly say in the moment. Through these long-term psychological operations, they have conditioned us, knowing approximately what this transition and this transfer of power is going to look like, and conditioning you to be able to see it when it happens and fight against it and resist it. Like the movie Childhood's End, where they end up coming off those ships looking exactly like the devil. And in that good book, they've conditioned you to believe you wait for the second gods to arrive. The first ones are the evil ones. That's the false gods. That's the devil. Wait for the second ones and resist the first ones with everything you have. And many people will. Most will not be able to free their mind and see that they are currently enslaved. People in third world countries have a better shot at it. That's how the last will be first and the first will be last. The things that I've shown prove we are being enslaved, and that they keep a grip on our hearts and minds by keeping us in the dark. They have deceived you through a lie of omission by concealing the plasma fire, by concealing the sun tunnel, and wiping out my YouTube channel when I filmed it and put the video up. That's real. That happened. And when people are given an opportunity to see this, it will help free their minds. Because they have been conditioned to fight for their own slavery. Those institutions which control their hearts and minds have filled them with fear. Fear-based mind control. Everything you've been trained and conditioned to fear is on purpose, by design, for the purpose of the controllers of this current power structure to maintain their control over your heart and mind. So everything you've been conditioned to fear, you can find your way to the truth. You follow the signs in reverse. Just like Wile E. Coyote runs up ahead of the Roadrunner and takes the sign that says north and flips it around. You can find the truth by following the signs backwards, and that's why they say, oh, the Satanists, they read the Bible backwards. When you can see that the mainstream institutions have kept you in the dark about something so detrimental, the magnitude, the ubiquitousness of plasma fire. In other words, it's everywhere you look. Once people get a chance to see that, they will have a chance at freeing their mind. When they get a chance to see the sun tunnel, and that it was concealed and kept from them, they will have an opportunity to recognize that all the conditioning and the programming and the propaganda that they've been programmed with came from institutions that were keeping them enslaved mentally, and relinquish their preconceived ideas and go through the painful process of accommodating in order to adapt to this new reality. But there will still be many who would rather die for what they believe in, even when it is shown to them that everything you believe in was given to you by people who are not acting in your best interest and are, in fact, keeping you in the dark about the nature of your reality, about the nature of who you are. And to that, everything is going to have to be taken from people in order that they can once again ask the question, who are you? You know, like the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland blowing the smoke rings. Who are you? People have given up on the idea of even pursuing such questions of who are we? Where are we? How did we get here? What are we supposed to be doing here? Where do we go after this? And what are we supposed to do here and now in order to get there then? Most people go through the motions of life without any concept of there being any purpose or meaning. And if there is any purpose or meaning to life, then that means there must also be consequences and an orchestrator and a coordinator of life experiences in order to steer life in the direction of, in order to perpetuate that purpose and meaning, whatever that purpose and meaning is. There has to be an orchestrator and a coordinator of life that steers our life experiences toward that purpose and meaning. And there also has to be consequences for our actions, our choices, and our behavior. If there are no consequences, then there is no purpose or meaning. And if it's all just random free will, everyone does whatever they want, and there is no orchestration or coordination of life experiences that direct life toward that purpose and meaning, then there can't be a purpose or meaning. There has to be a coordinator, an orchestrator, and an administrator of those consequences. People go about their life without ever even considering purpose, and because they are so distracted by, they have their attention focused upon the material wealth, the comforts and conveniences that come with material wealth. That is who they think they are. And once you take everything from them and say, okay, now who are you? Once you take everything from them, immediately the question of who am I will suddenly be front and center in their conscious awareness. Because they will recognize all those things that you based who you thought you were, your car, your house, your job, your wife, your kids, all of it. That's who you think you are. And when all of that disappears, everything you held so dear disappears without a trace, like David Gray sings in the song Sail Away. Then you realize you still exist. Your conscious awareness of yourself is still the same as it was. But you no longer have any of the things that you once based your self-identity on. And now you have to begin reformulating who am I? Because prior to that, no one wants to admit it or acknowledge it. But they base their answer to that question of who am I is based on their material possessions. That's what defines for them who they are. Not only their material possessions, but their societal structure, their cosmology, all of it will be taken from them, and they will immediately be forced to once again ask the question, who am I? Because everything I thought about who I was just disappeared, yet I still am. Who am I? Where am I? And seeking the truth about myself without fear of what it is I might discover was one of my mission statements that I made when I went on my vision quest to Missouri, to independence. And it's a very tough transition. Adaptation requires assimilation or accommodation. Assimilation of things that already fit into your worldview, your self-image and your worldview, or accommodation, adjusting the shape of your self-image and worldview in order to incorporate new understanding. And when you find out you're on a consciousness farm, it's going to be like ants on an ant farm. You know those little clear plexiglass plastic containers that have some sand in there? And the little ants going about their business digging the tunnels and stuff? It's going to be like we're in an alien ant farm in a closet with the lights turned off, and then suddenly the lights flip on and everyone can look around and see where we are and recognize that there is purpose and meaning to life, and we have lost our way because we don't even ask the question of what it is, much less live our lives accordingly in pursuit of such purpose and meaning. And we will recognize that there is an orchestrator and a coordinator of our life experiences on the consciousness farm to perpetuate that purpose and meaning of life. And there is an administrator of consequences on this consciousness farm to perpetuate that meaning of life. James calls it a garden, James True. Talks about pruning the human garden. In the song Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel, in the videography, they show the holy harvest, depicting humans as lettuce. And there will be a lot of mental and emotional anguish because people have pursued comfort over truth. In this combination of qualities of character that are the criteria upon which we are separated here on this consciousness farm: truth, honesty, courage, and compassion. But the truth, honesty, and the courage is a combination of qualities of character that I possess that many do not. Because I pursue truth over comfort, I am willing to accept the truth of who I am without fear of what I might discover. Others prefer comfort, short-term, instant gratification of comfort, and thus they deny truth. Well, that truth is about to catch up with us like a sonic boom, like an airplane that's been going faster than the speed of sound, and then it slows down below the speed of sound, and all that sound that built up behind it catches up and hits with a sonic boom. People have been trying to outrun the truth, and the truth is about to catch up with us, and it's going to be very discomforting for them to have to go through this radical transformation of their self-image and worldview, because they were not willing to do it incrementally along the way when they came into contact with things that went against the grain of their preconceived ideas. They would disassociate with it. That is another name for schizophrenia or split personality disorder. And I speak of this in some of my previous videos, that the world is demonstrating a form of dissociative identity disorder. They disassociate with the truth that is all around them, whether it's the operation that's been happening in the last few years and the truth about what that means, that you're enslaved and being culled, or the truth about the fact that the trees are burning from the inside out all around us. Whenever they come in contact with a truth that goes against the grain of their currently held cosmology and all their preconceived ideas, and would require them to change the shape of their worldview and thus the shape of their self-image, because your shape of your self-image fits perfectly inside the shape of your worldview. And when there's a change to the shape of your worldview, there has to be a corresponding change to your self-image, because it fits perfectly inside of your worldview. There always has to be a corresponding change. And when your worldview gets completely blown apart, so will your self-image, and then you will once again ask the question, who am I? When everything you once defined who you are according to is no longer in place. People are going to feel like a turtle without a shell. Previously, they thought, oh, well, I'm a human being on planet Earth. They're going to find out you're a vessel of consciousness on an alien ant farm. I'm a citizen of the United States, a country that doesn't exist anymore. The current power brokers have conditioned us to rebel and resist and fight against our own liberation. They have been thoroughly discredited to anyone who can see the plasma fire all around us and hear their deafening silence about it. May the odds be ever in your favor. I hope the things that I've amassed and accumulated and demonstrated over the past 5 years serve the purpose of helping people to free their mind and take a walk across that bridge, across the uncanny valley. That's how I have been a living bridge, and we are the generation that walks between worlds. But most people will prefer to die in their old world rather than to adapt to the new world, because it will require a lot of accommodation, and nothing about the new world will assimilate into your current worldview. And that is the collective initiation that we are in. You break me down, you build me up, believer. You break me down, build me back up, and do whatever it takes. That's the process of an initiation. They break you down and then build you back up. Like in the military boot camp, they break you down in boot camp and then build you back up as one of us, a Marine. In a fraternity or a sorority, they break you down during the hazing process, hazing the new pledges during Hell Week, and then build you back up as one of us, part of this fraternity or sorority. In a street gang, they beat you in if you're a man or sex you in if you're a woman to break you down. That's part of an initiation ritual. Most people have not allowed themselves to be broken down incrementally and let the truth that is revealing itself all around us sink in. Instead, they compartmentalize, they disassociate, and they go on with their world as if that's not really happening. So their breaking down process is going to happen drastically and dramatically, and I hope that the contribution I've made will help them in the rebuilding back up of their self-image and worldview once it is completely shattered and the rug is pulled out from under them.